it says we're live. Hello. Hi,
Can they see
sisters.
us?
Yes, I
my
think
God.
they should be able to. But it's not showing up on our screen.
Okay.
So that's okay. Oh, there we go.
Not, we are not.
Can you get that one on there, Mother?
But we are on.
Hello, everyone. Yay, wave hi. Albie says hi. Hello. Trumpet Girl says hi. We're trying to get, I don't know, I guess we could show you. We have another screen on this side. We're trying to hook up our TV to this live feed so that we can see questions. Okay. Here we go. If not, I could just pull it up on here and then we can see it here. Okay, so we are going to start off in prayer as we start off everything in prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Jesus, we ask you to be with us this evening. Help us to enter into the mystery of the call you have given us, into the mystery of religious life. And also help us to enter into the mystery of each one of us who are a tabernacle, a living tabernacle of your presence here in the world. Mother Mary, be with us, mother us, guide us, so we can be the best person that we can be, the person that we have been created to be. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Our Lady of Mercy,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
All right, so I'm going to try and fix this technical difficulty going on right now. If you want to kind of intro us into why we're here, who we are, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Okay, I'm Mother Janet. I'm with the Mercedarian Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. And this is Ashley.
I entered August 15th. I'm a postulant here now.
If you notice, I didn't say when I entered, but it was a long time ago. I entered in August 1st, 1982, so that's a lot of years ago. But time has gone so fast. And this is one of our first-year novices, and she can introduce herself.
My name is Sister Raquel, and as Madre said, I'm a first-year novice. I just entered the novitiate on September 24th, the feast day of Our Lady of Mercy, along with Sister Tanya.
Hello! I'm also a first-year novice. I entered with Raquel, and I'm just trying to fix what's going on.
Thank you, Sister Tanya.
Yes.
So I think that God is helping us. We were so nervous to see ourselves in the cameras. So then I think that God solved that problem very well in His own way. But this is separated this week to be a week for vocations, asking people to pray for vocations, to religious life, to the priesthood. So that's what we want to do during this section. We are going to be here for 1 hour until 8:30, because at 8:30 we have prayers again. So please, if you have any question, curious questions, serious questions about religious life, feel free to type them, and we will answer to the best of our ability. As you can hear my accent, well, first of all, I'm nervous. It's my first time in camera, so my accent is really coming out. I am originally from Mexico City, and after I made my first vows in 1985, they asked me to come and serve my community in the United States. So that's why I'm here, and I love it. I love the American people.
And can you tell a little bit about the history of the Mercedarian Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament?
Sure. We were founded in 1910 in Mexico City by Venerable Maria del Refugio. She received inspiration to found a community that was dedicated to loving Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, to make reparation for all the offenses that the Blessed Sacrament receives, and to spread that love. Many people haven't had the opportunity to spend time to feel themselves loved by Jesus, especially as Jesus is present in the Blessed Sacrament. So she wanted to form Eucharistic souls. And she began getting together with other widows. She was a widow. She became a widow at 20 years old. And she had by then 2 children. And then after about a year or so that her husband had died, the son died. And so it was just in the world, her and her little girl. And after the little girl had grown up and she had become a teacher, then she began founding our community. And she began going to the Curium, asking the bishop to please approve this community that was just being born. The only problem is that there was a lot of upheaval, political upheaval in Mexico. So we had a revolution, and then after that we had, in 1926, we had the religious persecution. So if you see what the human being considers prudence, is not really what Jesus considers prudence. And Jesus was really starting this new community in these very difficult times of the revolution and later on of the religious persecution. The bishop sent one of the Mercedarian friars to check our community to see if it was something that was coming from God. The church in her wisdom has to see being inspired by the Holy Spirit. So they sent a Mercedarian priest. His name was Alfred Scotty. And after spending some time with our community, he went back to the bishop and said, yes, that's true. There are many, many other communities that are teaching communities, but I have not encountered another community that really, that is the apostolate, is not really the center of their lives. The center of their lives is the Eucharist, and what they want is to form Eucharistic souls in those children in order to transform society from the Eucharist. So we were accepted as a new community, and then eventually we got the diocesan permission, and then we are a community now of pontifical right. So we have celebrated our 100th anniversary already, and we are about 580 sisters in 13 different countries. And even though we do have schools, also we have some missions, like in Mozambique, in Cuba, some of them in Mexico. And we try also youth groups, retreats. We have here in the States also a place for the dying and the sick and dying, a place of spiritual healing, but also of physical healing. And still, like in the first days, we are really trying to love our God in His Eucharistic presence with all our mind, our soul. As we heard this past Sunday with the Shema, we are trying to love our God with everything, with all our forces and all our strength. And we invite you to do the same. I know that probably you are looking at seeing us, then probably you are a good Catholic, you are also on fire for our Lord. So we are ready for any questions.
Okay, well, we already got a question. This is from H. Gwern. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry. She asks, when feeling a call to religious life, is it okay to mourn, in a sense, the family life that we likely will not have in the way we once imagined it?
Yes, of course, we have the beauty and the attraction when we receive the call. I remember Mother Teresa of Calcutta, they asked her at one time, how do you know? How does a girl know when she has received a call? And she said, you just know. And yes, it's like when you fall in love, you just know that you're in love. And it's the same with Christ. So you feel the attraction to religious life. You feel that you want to belong totally. He is attracting you. He's enticing you, and you really fall in love with Jesus and you want to follow Him. But it's very difficult to leave your family, your friends. Why not? Even the parties you are going to mourn, dancing or going out, hiking, whatever your pastime is. Of course, we do mourn that. It's part of the call. And they just came from really 1 year or some months ago. So I don't know if you want to share how you went through that process of mourning.
I think we're still going through it, and each time, through our discernment and through our formation, there's like different parts that we're mourning. So I think it was, we made the decision to enter, so like we left our family, and that was a difficult decision. But now it's like, okay, sometimes there's the desire to be in a relationship, the desire to have a family, and it's so important to acknowledge these desires because we are human and we have these desires. Like, God doesn't want us to hide them from Him. He gave us these desires to love, but He wanted us to like focus it on Him, and that He will then take those desires and redirect them to Himself. And like, God has just fulfilled those desires in so many ways that I never imagined. Like, there's all these families at our parish, and their little kids, like, we're able to love them and care for them. And so I think what we're learning right now is just being honest in our relationships with God and in prayer about what we're feeling and what we desire, because God places desires on our hearts. So he wants us to talk about it with Him. And that mourning, yes, it can be tough, but there's always going to be sacrifices, and there's a greater love there. Yeah. All right, let's see if we have another question. Okay, this comes from Court Potter. How hard was it to tell your parents that you would be joining the religious life?
It was difficult in a sense because it was something I was unfamiliar with in a sense, so I didn't have all of the answers. So it was kind of a conversation that was just like, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and I'm going to take the next step in moving forward. I don't know exactly what that entails or what it will entail for the future, but I just would like the support in this. So it was a tough conversation, but it was through the grace of God that helped guide me and give me the strength to just be open and accept His will in that.
I was always talking about religious life at home. I would talk about it every day, all the time to my mom, and so she was very used to the topic. And so when I finally decided, I'm very thankful for her support, and even to this day, she supports me in my vocation, and I'm very grateful to God and to her for her support. She has supported me since the beginning, and she told me before I left, she said, just give it a try. For whatever reason it doesn't work out, you can come back home. She said, but I think it's going to work out because this is something you've always wanted to do. So, and I know it's hard for parents. I mean, it was hard for the family just to leave for the separation. But ultimately, I am thankful to my mom and to my siblings for their support, for supporting me in my vocation. So, thank you.
I think that leaving our families is one of the hardest things. Just breaking it to our parents. You know that you are going to hurt them. And I see my brothers are married, and I mean, family gets so excited when they are engaged and when they are about to get married, but it doesn't happen with religious life. And the families might be very Catholic, but they mourn us when we are going to enter religious life, which doesn't happen necessarily when they are going to get married. So it is very painful. I cannot say otherwise. But at the same time, there is a force inside that sustains you. And you know that later on, God is going to heal their hearts. And when they see us happy in religious life, when they see that we are fulfilled, that it is really fulfilling our heart's desires, then they accept our vocation and they are happy that we are in religious life. It takes time for some parents more than others, but God gives the grace, and that's where we have to trust that God will console them, and that God is going to make something beautiful out of this painful situation.
Here's another question. Has your spiritual maternity changed since entering? If so, how? How can a single woman continue to practice spiritual maternity?
It has changed a lot. Well, maybe because I am, of course, older than my daughters and my novices and my postulant, when I was younger, of course, I would run to any baby, to any little toddler, and I would carry them, and I would express my spiritual maternity that way. But then after I was getting older, and I was studying, especially when I was teaching the junior high students, I really felt how my heart expanded because I wanted to guide them. I wanted to be with them in their problems. I wanted to be their teacher, but also to be someone that they could rely on. And I could feel my heart expanding to really loving each one of them. Sometimes I would worry too much after 3 o'clock they were going home, but I would be praying for them. I would be the spiritual motherhood, going to adoration and putting in front of Jesus, oh, can you please take care of Bobby because he has this problem? Or this other child cannot learn. Can I bring him to you so he can pass the next test? And so I would see how I was bringing them to my prayer life. And now that God, by God's grace, I am mother mistress of my novices and the formator of my postulant, my heart has even expanded more because I feel so responsible for their spiritual life, for their maturity, for everything. And it's an honor to be able to accompany them in these first years of religious life and see how they mature spiritually, how they mature emotionally. It's really, I just love them so much. I just feel that my heart just gets so big. And yeah.
And we come to her like as if she is our mother. You are our mother. And so, yeah, like someone who's about to get married and they like enter in this new family and they have a mother-in-law and a father-in-law and all that. Like that's what happens here, and like you become our mother, and the conversations that like we all have. And
Yeah,
it's great.
Yes.
And just how sisters really are mothers to all, and how Jesus told Mary, like, behold your mother at the foot of the cross, you know, to John, and it really is, like you were saying, like we get to bring everyone to prayer, and we get to be those spiritual moms, and
And it's important that we are spiritual mothers to those outside in our apostolate, but we can never forget, and also as a young woman, that you have to begin being a mother to those that you live with, even to your own mother. If she's feeling sick, bring a tea to her, massage her feet, help her to do her hair. It's not only being mothers to those outside, because sometimes we fantasize, oh, when I am outside, I'm going to love them, and we forget those that we are already living with. So that's something that we in our community try to do. I'm going to be a mother to all those that God sends me to, but also I have to begin practicing with my sisters.
to love those that are
Close
nearest
to
to
you.
us. Yeah.
That God has already put in there for you.
What are some tips? Or you could say something. What are some tips for discernment for young girls if they're watching right now, young women? Just some tips that they could do right where they are in discerning and hearing God's voice better.
Oh no, God.
I would say that you begin by feeling attraction to religious life. You name it. It can be the habit that you're attracted to the habits, and then you see habits, and it's like, oh, that's so beautiful. Or you see the veil, or you see sisters, and oh, I just love to be with sisters all the time. Oh, can I go to the retreat? And sometimes in retreats you just begin with the idea, why not? Why not? So that becomes a possibility for you. And as I tell my sisters and I tell young women when they come to me, when you begin feeling so attracted to a habit, for example, or to prayer, hours of prayer, I mean, that's not natural. That is supernatural. Because what is natural is that I want to go to the mall and I want to buy a pair of jeans. I want to buy this blouse. That's natural. Heels, all the makeup and everything. Yes, but when you say, oh, I just love that habit. Oh, I feel so good when I am in prayer. Oh, I want to go to another discernment retreat. And you begin feeling that Jesus can be the love that can fulfill your heart and your desires, then probably Jesus is calling you to be totally His. No intermediaries, no mediations, that He wants to be all and everything for you, but He wants you to choose Him.
Some tips, don't be afraid. If you are interested in religious life or curious or have ever thought about it, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to go to discernment retreats. A discernment retreat is a discernment retreat. It doesn't mean you're going to join the community. It means you're going to go and discern and see. A lot of communities have what's called come and see events where you go and see. Like I said, it doesn't mean you have to commit or join the community. You're simply going to go and see. Don't be afraid to ask questions to different sisters. Talk to the vocation directors of different communities, especially those communities you feel attracted to. And ask the vocation director those questions that you're wondering about. Don't be afraid. You don't lose anything by asking. If anything, questions will give you clarity in your discernment.
And trust that God is guiding you. Like, Jesus is a good shepherd. He is leading you. Even in choosing a community to enter with or to visit, or just say, like, Jesus, I have this desire in my heart to follow you in this way, to fulfill, my call to love you through a religious vocation. Please, like, if this is truly from you, like, lead me where you want me. And let me tell you, God will make it happen.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, suddenly just everything begins falling into place, and you know that it's God guiding you.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if there's more questions. Let's see. People are saying, hi everyone. Okay, this is from Winston G. Fable. What does a typical day in your community look like? What are your jobs?
Well, we wake up at 5:15 with prayers come off, and then we are usually in the chapel at 6 for morning prayer, and then we have mass, and then we go into breakfast, and then we go into our apostolate, which can lead into many different directions. The professed sisters will be in the school, and then us postulant and novices will have daytime prayer, and then Lectio, spiritual reading. So it goes in different directions. We have a horarium that we follow that kind of helps guide us through our days in what we should be doing.
So then they also have several slots of time to spend time with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, minimum 1 hour per day. And then after, as Ashley said, we have the horarium, we have midday prayer, we have lunch. After that, so they are trying to get their masters in theology, most of them too. So they go to the seminary for classes, other classes they take here with me. And also a great program that we have, Magdala, for religious sisters. Also they do that, and that is awesome. And then we get together again at 5 o'clock, and we have our holy hour, that is the Rosary and Divine Office. And then we have a meal together. And after that, we have other classes, or they have time to iron, to wash. Also, we have recreation, we play games. And at 8:30, then we have compline. So from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, we begin with grand silence until the next day.
Yeah. All right. So a lot of people say hi. Ashley, your siblings say hi. Anna asked, does Ashley miss me? Yes, I'll answer that.
Oh my goodness.
Seneca says hi. Court Potter asks, what is your favorite thing about being a sister besides being married to JC, who is Jesus Christ?
Okay. So let's begin on this side.
I think for me right now, I get to help in the school a lot, so I get to be with the kids. So just being that witness for them, because a lot of the kids here saw me when I was not a sister. I was just in the school because my siblings were in school, so they saw me, and now being in the school, their eyes have like totally opened. So just being that witness for them, but also Eucharistic adoration is definitely one of my favorites. Just to spend that 1 hour of intimacy with Jesus is pretty great. So
Yes, of course, Eucharistic adoration too, just to be able to be there with Jesus in that one-to-one conversation. But also just to know that I am living in the house of God, that's serious, and that is so awesome, that I know that I'm sleeping over there, the chapel is there, Jesus is always there. Whatever I do, I am doing it with Him, so that's very nice.
I would say my favorite part about religious life is fulfilling the call that I feel that God is calling me to, drawing me closer to Him. And just that in itself, I'm thankful, and I'm thankful to be here. Like Madre was saying, it's such a blessing to live here in the convent, to know that our Eucharistic Lord is just a few feet away from us in the chapel. And so it's a moment of thanksgiving. Just our hearts are filled with gratitude to God for just calling us to this vocation. And I think whatever vocation God is calling you to, it's a moment to be grateful, because that's where God is calling you to love. So I'm thankful to be here, and I thank Him for His presence in the Eucharist, and I thank Him for my vocation.
Yes to all of what you all said. And also, Sister Raquel and I became novices 2 months ago, something
September
like that.
24th.
Yeah, and something someone in one of our seminary classes said to us is like, your identity doesn't matter anymore. Like, literally, people just call you sister, and that's who you are. And at first I was kind of like, whoa, like, that's so true. But now, like, praying with that is just like, it's so beautiful. Like, when people see us, like, they see God. And that's what my life is now, like, outwardly and inwardly. And that I love it. I don't even have words for that. And like you guys all said, being able to live here with Jesus and just to like be in prayer with Him, and to know of His love and to spread that in this world is such a gift.
A beautiful experience, and all of us have had that experience. We sometimes go out and people would see us, including Ash, in the jumper, because that's not how normally young girls dress. So they know that she's different. There is something different about her. So they ask us, oh, can we take a picture with you? Can you pray? So it's beautiful. We don't even have to talk to people. They just see, as you were saying, God. Mm-hmm. They just see the habit. And children are so wise. Sometimes they say, Mom, the church. So they are so wise what we represent. So it's so beautiful to be able to be that witness.
And when the little kids say, you're married to Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. All right, let's see if there's more questions. Lots of people say hi. Oh, okay, so this comes from Ashley's brother.
Oh, boy.
Damo. Who would win in basketball game, the priest or the sisters?
The sisters all the way.
Okay.
Volleyball.
Another question. How often does your community go on retreat or have days of recollection? That's a good question.
That's a good one.
Wow. We have a day of recollection. We call it Desert Day, once a month. And we go for a retreat once a year for 8 days. So it is 8 desert days. Those are days of complete silence and solitude. So that's what we do. So those days we don't eat as a community, we don't pray as a community. The Blessed Sacrament is exposed, and we just spend the day in solitude and silence, praying, doing spiritual reading, lectio, and it's really so recreating.
Yeah. Does anyone want to speak about silence? Have any thoughts on silence?
When I first entered and I was first experiencing my first desert day, my dad was like, kept asking, Mother Jeanette was like, I don't know if Ashley's going to be able to do it. Like, I don't think she's going to be able to be quiet the whole time. But it was actually just like, again, by the grace of God, like, it was so rewarding and so, it was such an intimate experience because, again, I didn't think I could be quiet the whole day because that's just who I am. But it was just so peaceful and relaxing to just kind of not worry about anything and just be in the presence of Jesus the whole day. Like, yeah, it was scary at first, I'm not gonna lie, but it's definitely worth it.
Really, we all look forward to our desert days.
You get to hear God's voice more clearly, and he's constantly speaking to our hearts, and to like allow him to speak in that silence is just like, it opens up all the gates to just being closer to God. It's amazing.
Sometimes God also can be silent.
Yes.
And then He's teaching us to be silent.
Yes.
Tough lesson, but it's good.
So make time for silence in your day. It's great. Someone asked, it's May plus you. What is the charism of your community?
As I mentioned at the beginning, we exist really, and this is what our constitution say. We exist for the contemplation of the divine things. The first one is Jesus, the presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. So we exist to hopefully be like St. John and keep our ear very close to the heart of Jesus and hear his palpitations of love. And to once we are full with that experience, then we can bring Jesus to people. And that's how our day more or less goes, whatever the apostolate we have. Some sisters are in school, other sisters are, as I told you, in Baton Rouge with the dying and the sick. Other sisters are, they work with the UF students in Florida. So we go to Mass in the morning so we can be filled with the presence of Jesus and with Jesus in the Eucharist. And then we go to our apostolate to bring Jesus to the people. And then we have prophet sisters, they come back in the afternoon to 1 hour of adoration in front of Jesus, so they can bring the world to Jesus. So we try to be that. We bring Jesus to the world, and then we bring the world to Jesus. So really, our life is centered in the Eucharist, but you know, you can never be the perfect adorer unless you learn at the feet of Mary. Mary is the perfect woman who knows how to be silent and how to receive Jesus. So we have to walk with Mary. There is no other way.
Okay, there's lots of really good questions coming in. Let's...
Are you there or you can?
Yes. And my sister Isabel. So, but we cannot take the call right now. So just a little commercial. Sorry.
Okay, so it's if someone were to take like the first step in religious life and enter with a community, and you discern later that it's not for you, can you leave? Like if you're a postulant, have you taken vows yet? That's a good question.
That's a really good
Very
question.
good question.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, of course. You have to keep in mind that the first years of religious life, as a postulant, as a novice, those are years to continue discerning the call. Not only on your side, you are discerning, you enter into a community to see if this is the community that you want to belong to see also if if your call is genuine. How are you going to discern that? You are going to live the life that the community lives, so you can see if this is what you are looking for, what you were expecting. But also, don't forget, also the community is discerning, so I am discerning if they are fit for the community. So it's both sides. They are discerning their call and discerning if they are fit for our community. So we work together. There are no surprises. We get together once a week. We call it colloquium. So for about 40 minutes to 1 hour, I meet with each one of them individually on a weekly basis. And then we see how are you doing in your prayer life? How are you doing in your relationship with your sisters? What are you having difficulty? Or what is your joy? What has been your joy this week? So we are working together. If at one point we see that something is not working, then we begin discerning seriously in prayer to see if this is a temptation or if it is really coming from God and that maybe He brought you here for a reason, but this is not the place that He wants you to stay. And then, of course, you are free always to leave. But once you have vows, it's different because then, I'm sorry, because then you have made vows, you have taken an oath that you want to belong totally to Jesus.
I almost reported a comment. Sorry. Okay. Someone asked if we have a convent dog. Yes. I hope he doesn't get upset. Albie, look.
We have two.
This is Albie. Say hi. Say hi. This is Albie, and we have Ava. She's not here right now. But yes, they are our convent dogs, and we love them very much. And Ava's always in the school to like help calm down the children, and it's really beautiful. Sleep. Yes, she sleeps a lot. Another question. Oh, no, I'm not reporting you. Sorry. Comments. Okay. Why did you choose the Mercedarians? What stuck out to you about your order? coming in for this one.
Okay, so maybe we should begin
Yeah,
now with
we'll
your-
do this one, yeah.
Let's begin with Sister
Yes.
Tanya.
So, like I said, God will put the community that He is bringing you to right in your path. The Mercedarians opened a house in Gainesville, Florida, where I was going to college. They opened the house my junior year, and there's actually 6 of us from the University of Florida who have entered with our community. So I saw...
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time. They were older than me, so I saw their journey to religious life, and it was really beautiful. I kind of was like, maybe not the Mercedarians, and a lot of us did that because the other girls entered with the Mercedarians. But I saw how authentic the Mercedarians were, and just their devotion to Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament, their mission to redeem the captivity in people's souls. That was something that just felt like home to me. And in coming to visit the Mercedarians my senior year of college, I just saw, like, there was just so much peace, so much joy, so much love. It felt like I was, coming to family, and it really felt like home. And so that's what drew me to the Mercedarians.
What brought me to the Mercedarians is that I was looking for some specific things already. One, and the most important, the Eucharist. Just a love for Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament. Even before entering the convent, I was really drawn to Eucharistic adoration. And so that was definitely the first thing. The next thing was the contemplative and the prayer life. Was something that was always really important to me, but also a mix of both a contemplative life and apostolic life, so some sort of service working with the people, but also the deep contemplative life, so both of those. And then third, I was drawn to a community with a religious habit, wanting that visible sign, and just that visible sign to tell people about God just by what we wear.
And I entered very young at 16, so I didn't have all that maturity that they are expressing. But I remember when I was at 16, something that really drew me was that they were already praying. I was in school, they would ring the bell, and then I would see all these nuns coming from different classrooms and all that, and walking together. And sometimes what I loved is that sometimes they were racing each other to go to the chapel. They would look at each other like, no, I'm going to meet you, and they would begin running. That joy, that kind of... innocence and playfulness, I could connect to that. So it really attracted me as a 16-year-old girl that I entered, that playfulness that they had. Plus also they were always playing with me. I mean with the students, quemados, and so I really loved that they were always in our games.
For me, I actually went to grade school at Our Lady of Mount Carmel, where our convent is located. So I was surrounded by the Mercedarians from a very young age. My kindergarten teacher was a sister. My 6th grade teacher was actually Mother Jeanette. So I was just surrounded by it for many, many years, and I didn't really realize it until in recent months, obviously, that I was very attracted to it, that I was very comfortable with it, and that every instance I was around the sisters, I just felt at home in peace. I just thought it was just because I was comfortable since I was around them for so long. Never that I could be actually called to religious life. So,
As we're all talking, I'm just thinking about the things that I love about our community, and it's just making me grateful. Just the fact of, one thing that Mother Jeanette told us is that when you enter the community, like, you're not losing who you are. If anything, you're adding to, like, the charism.
Enriching it, yes.
Yeah, you're enriching it. Because God wants to use all the gifts and everything that He's placed in us to, like, to glorify Him. And so when we're uniting, like, our will to His, like, He'll use all of that in a bigger way.
And see, that is a misconception. Many people think that, let's say, if I'm athletic, I'm going to lose that when I enter religious life. If I am so bubbly, I'm going to lose that when I enter religious life. But why, in what good mind, the idea can be that the gifts that God has given me, He's going to ask me to abandon them out there. No, if God has given you gifts, He wants you to put those gifts to work. He wants you to blossom. And of course, He's going to do it in a way beyond your expectations. So your gifts will not be lost. They are going to be put to work in a beautiful We just have to trust.
Definitely. All right, let's see if there's more. Scrolling. Does your community receive a religious name? At what point? We got a couple of name questions. So, talking about the changing of our names and receiving religious names.
Yes, recently our community used to change names, and then remember, just keep in mind that our community was born in Mexico, and for many years, whatever the rules were made in Mexico, they stayed. So in Mexico, they used to change names when we were founded. After that, and with the religious persecution and all that, we stopped the changing names. It was just a big hassle. But then we asked for permission again, and even though we do keep our baptismal name, we can add another name. For example, in my case, my baptismal name was Janet, but I added Marie, so it's Janet Marie. And then you can choose if you just want to go by the name that you added, or if you want to go by both names. For example, we have in Sister Josefina, her name was April. Well, it's April Marie Josefina, but it's so long. So when people ask her, how do you want to be called, then she says Josefina, so she goes by Josefina. So, but we keep the baptismal name, that is the name that we were adopted as children of God, so we keep that name, but we add another one. It can be a name, or it can be a devotion, like another sister, Sister Catherine, she added of the Holy Trinity, because she has that special gift of loving the Holy Trinity. Everything that is the indwelling of the Holy Trinity, she is very attracted to that gift, so she adopted that devotion, added that devotion to her name.
So in our community, that's at first profession of vows.
Yes.
But in each community, it differs, and that's why it's really important to ask these questions when discerning, just to get to know how each community works and their different qualities and different things that they do, because each one is different. We're all different parts of the body of Christ. And another question, this is kind of like an extended question. A little bit of our vocation stories. Someone wants to know.
Wow. I mean, that's trying to make a huge story short.
I know.
As I told you, at 16 years old, I was in high school in Mexico studying, and I was skipping class. I was skipping algebra, and that's why ironic, because I became an algebra teacher for 15 years, but I was skipping algebra, and then I was about this close to get caught by one of the sisters. I studied in one of our schools. So I ran to the chapel with my friends. So we faked that we were praying, but it's incredible how God waits for you where you are at. And as I ran into the chapel with my friends, there was another group of girls in the chapel, and the sister was praying with the Gospel of St. John, and she read out loud, "It is not you who have chosen me, I have chosen you." And only those that have had that experience, I didn't hear that with my ears, it just really pierced my heart. I could not forget from that moment on that word, that I have chosen you. Then I began discerning religious life, and about 8 months after that, I entered religious life, because I really felt that I had been chosen, and I could not take that away from me. And I just felt so attracted to religious life. And I entered with the permission of my mother, because I was underage. So that's in a capsule, my story.
Are you looking at me?
No, you can go. It's fine.
Okay, so I'll do like when I finally threw in the towel. It was towards the end of my senior year, and it was the Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul. I was in Eucharistic adoration, going to write my letter to apply to the Mercedarians, and like a mom and her baby walked into the church, and I got really excited because I love babies. And I was like, oh, I want to go say hi, but like, no, it's okay, Tanya. Back then it was just Tanya, not Sister Tanya. I was like, okay, I'll just, let them pray, and I'll just write my letter. So I was in the front of the church, and I was writing in my journal, and so in order to like apply to our community, you write a letter telling kind of your vocation and how you discern that this is where God is calling you. So I was writing my letter, and I crossed it out dramatically, and I put my journal down, and I looked up at Jesus in the Eucharist, and I was just like, I don't even know if this is what you want me to do. I don't even know what you want me to say. And then I heard the baby and her mom playing in the middle aisle of the church, and I was in a moment of just courage. I just told Jesus, I go, if this is what you want me to do, if you want me to apply to the Mercedarians, that little baby needs to come up to my pew. And then, I heard what I said, and I was like, no, Jesus, I'm not going to test you anymore. I've tested you enough. It's okay. I'll trust you. I'll just do it. And before I could even, finish my sentence, I just heard, and the little baby was crawling, and I was like, no, she's not going to stop at my pew. She's going to keep going. Why would she stop at me? And I look over, and she's just looking at me like this. And I was like, okay, Jesus, I'm not going to question you anymore. And he just speaks to our hearts and, write what we need to hear. And I couldn't argue that anymore. It was, definitely what he was desiring. So, yeah.
For me, I went on a retreat, I chaperoned for my little brother, and it was a special retreat in a sense because I attended that retreat when I was in 8th grade. And then the retreat house I was at, I've experienced many retreats there, and has been a really good time at that retreat house. And during Eucharistic adoration, I'm sitting there, and this song comes on. It's called "Oh Come to the Altar," and I'm sitting there, and some of the lyrics start going through, and one of them is "Father's arms are open wide," and I instantly, again, how Mother Jeanette said it, didn't go to my ears. It was my heart. It just pierced my heart, and I came overwhelmed with tears, and I just didn't know exactly what was happening. And then fast forward, I went on a discernment retreat, and again, staring at Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, that song comes on, and I'm like, okay, he's really trying to tell me something now. So then after that moment, again, was filled with tears, but then after that, I just kind of was like, okay, this is it. We're going to take this discernment seriously, and 6 months or so after that, I entered.
Well, the theme of my vocation story is waiting. So if you're waiting, don't worry. Your time will come. There's a time for everything, as Scripture says. So for me, religious life was just very strongly on my heart and my mind for a very long time. And so I knew that God was pursuing my heart. And so I had a job, and I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I had. But at the end of the day, I knew there was something that I knew that God was calling me to give myself to Him in a more complete way. Even though I was serving my church nearby, and I loved it, and so again, there was this sense that God was calling me to give my whole self to Him. And so I knew that I would not have complete peace until I pursued that. And so what I did, I prayed, I said, God, if you're calling me to religious life, show me the community. Well, I visited different communities, and I discerned even one particular community before coming here. And I had even wrote Mother Jeanette a 7-page letter telling her thank you for her help, but I was going to join a different community. And look at where I am today. So even if you think sometimes you're going in a certain direction, God may lead you to where He wants you. I also tried a different community that I was also attracted to, and that community said no. And so if you try a community and they say no, it's just that God is leading you to where He wants you. So a no doesn't necessarily mean no to religious life. It may just mean no to that community. And God is using that situation to guide you to where He wants you. So I prayed, I said, God, if you're calling me to religious life, show me the community. So I went to many different discernment retreats. I spent time getting to know different sisters, building relationships with them, asking questions. And so that was kind of easing my transition into the community where God was calling me. So I was actually in contact with Mother Jeanette off and on for about 3 years, because my first visit was in 2014. And so within those 3 years, I continued to work where I was working as a counselor in a nonprofit organization. And in the midst of those 3 years, still feeling the call, but it was not God's time yet. So I would call Mother Jeanette and let her know kind of what was going on. She would say, okay. But one thing in discernment that's really important is God's timing. And so I had to wait until it was God's time. And so 2017, I visited the community for a second time, and it was about that. It was that second visit where I thought, okay, I feel like now's the time. So I talked to Mother Jeanette, and she asked me at that second visit, she said, so are you ready to enter, or are you still going to discern? And I said, I think I'm ready to enter now. So then we worked it out, so I would be joining that July, and that was last year.
So, just like some things that I've thought of while we were all telling our stories is that, like, discernment, it's not us trying to figure it out. It's like, it's responding to a call that God's placed on our hearts. So, like, God is leading, and it's not something that we have to, like, rack our brains. I spent so much time just, like, questioning, trying to figure it out, but it's really just allowing God to speak to our hearts and just following. Like, that's all it is, and not being afraid to take that next step, because, like, so much of it is moving forward, and if we just, like, stand there, if we don't visit, if we don't go on a discernment retreat, then we'll never know, you know? Mm-hmm. So taking that leap of faith and going to a come and see, just to see what it's like, really makes a difference. And then applying and entering,
all the good stuff.
And before entering, there are those struggles. You do question, you do doubt, you have fears. Yes. What if it doesn't work out? I'm leaving my family, I'm leaving my job, I'm leaving all these things, I'm leaving everything. I mean, so there are those doubts, but ultimately, if God is calling you, He's going to give you the grace for your vocation, and it will work out, and He will give you, above all, peace and joy to follow your heart's desire to wherever that He's calling you to.
And probably you are thinking, but how do I know that it is God's voice and not my own voice? Well, you cannot give yourself peace and joy. Peace and joy come from God. So when you are discerning, at the moment you are feeling peace and joy, journal. Write down, why am I feeling so full of peace and joy at this moment? And journal it. Because the moment is going to come when you are going to feel paralyzed with fear, that I can't do this. And so fear does not come from God. That I can tell you. Fear does not come from God. So it's coming out of our own psychological weakness, from our own, maybe lack of self-esteem, from other things, or from the evil one. But fear does not come from God. So once you have made a decision, when you are feeling full of peace and joy, stick to that decision and continue praying and asking Our Lady to guide you to where you need to go.
So I think that kind of answered, what should someone do after they think they receive the call? Oh, spiritual directors.
Yes, please.
Yes, definitely hopping back in. Talk to a priest, talk to a sister that you know about what the movements of your heart, because we cannot objectively speak about our own spiritual lives. We need someone to be able to guide us and to be the voice of God for us that we can then follow. Because there's so many different things going on in our heads, so many different emotions that can just totally,
And many times you listen to the advice of your friends, but the point is that your friends know nothing about religious life. So even though they have so much love for you and they want to help you, they can't advise you because they don't have the experience of being called. Only the person that has been called knows how it feels like and what they are experiencing. And only another person that has received that call can understand your heart.
So if you feel called, continue in prayer. Pray about a spiritual director if God is leading you to speak to a certain priest. Start meeting with them regularly. Seek out discernment retreats.
Like in our discernment retreats, what we do is that we, of course, in a capsule, we teach the girls how to recognize if this voice comes from God or if it comes from the world, from myself, from the evil one. So there are signs. Thank God for saints like Saint Ignatius of Loyola that helps us to discern, following our heart, the movements of our heart, our spiritual life. So that's what we teach the girls when they come into our discernment retreats. Just a little bit so they can recognize where God is leading them, if it is God who is leading them or who is misleading them too.
Someone was very thankful that you spoke about waiting, so thank you. Let's see what other questions. This is a good one. What is one captivity that you think enslaved people the most? And how does your order, or like what do we do to try and free these people from it? It's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
What is coming to my mind right now is that people want to be loved, but they don't know what love is, and they don't know where to look for love. So unfortunately, people relate love to a feeling, when love is an act of the will. Because feelings come and go. And then because of our broken society, especially the brokenness in families, they have not learned to love, and they are not feeling loved. So they look for someone to love them, and they lower their standards and accept any mockery of love. And then they get hurt, and then I think that is one of the greatest captivities. Because I see, you can say maybe sensuality and sex and all that, but really what these people are looking for is love. But they are looking in the wrong place, in the wrong manner. That's why we need to bring these people to Jesus so they can experience what real love is. Because once you feel loved by the Father, once you experience the embrace of the Father, the embrace of Christ, the embrace of Mary, then you are not going to put yourself in situations in which you can be hurt, because you know now what it feels like to be loved. But I don't know what you think. You are much younger, so I don't know what you think about captivity.
I think that's
I think that sums it up right there.
Especially being on a college campus. Like, I mean, I graduated a year and a half ago, maybe. And just seeing how, I mean, even myself, just trying to fill the void with either shooting for a career or going out or relationships or anything, like trying to be loved. And then the whole culture of moral relativism, saying that whatever's good for you is good for you, whatever is good for me, like that's not love. Like a parent would not tell their child that just because the kid wants to go eat chocolate all day, like that's okay, or put their hand on the stove, that's okay, you know? Like out of true love, we will, you know, help our brothers and sisters and tell them what is right and wrong, out of love and charity. But that's definitely a captivity today. Like, and then entering religious life, God did like a complete 180 of everything that I thought was real love or charity, and like God really wants to teach us what the truth is, and it's Him. Like He is the guide, the way, the truth, and the life. You know, it's all true. Like He will show us, and that love is a daily decision, and it's not this fairy tale that is portrayed, and that it requires sacrifice, and it's the greatest gift. Even though sometimes it's not easy, you know, but that's the example that we need in this world.
But that's why please pray for priests, pray for all of us religious, because we want to really be that witness of God's love for each one of you, for all the people that come to us, even in a smile, even in saying hi. We want that person at that moment to feel loved. And
So we don't necessarily know how long ago our live video ended. Sorry, but the conversation of redeeming captivity was just that we are redeemed first and foremost as we sit before Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament every single day. And then
about the prayer of intercession, that is very strong. We always pray for people in that hour of adoration during the Holy Rosary. People that probably we will never meet, but that need our prayers, and we believe that Jesus can do it through our poor prayers.
Okay, yes, people are still watching. This is great.
Anyway, it's the end of
Yes.
it because it's our time for compliment. So thank you very much for being with us. Sorry about that technical problems,
Yes.
but we'll try to do better next time.
Yes, and one last thing, I saw a question about if you have student loans and you're discerning religious life. There are foundations out there that are willing to help with that. So if God is calling you, He will make a way and will make it possible for you to enter and live out this call that He's placed on your heart. And we will be praying for all of you.
And let's finish with our glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Thank you for watching us. Good night.
Bye.